Hi everyone, and welcome to another marvelous video. When it comes to the street-level heroes of the Marvel Universe, no one can deny that Matthew Murdock, aka Daredevil, makes it to the top of the list. The character's cool costume, phenomenal fighting skills, and brilliant backstory contribute to making him a fan favorite. Daredevil not only saved the day alone, but was also part of several team-ups with other heroes of the franchise. One such was Spider-Man, with whom he shared a great deal of common villains and enemies. Today's video is dedicated to the villains faced by Daredevil in all the different forms of media. The list is long, and watching it till the end is highly recommended. So without any further delay, let us begin. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Daredevil is our true public enemy.
Kingpin. First on the list, we have crime lord Wilson Fisk, aka the Kingpin. Created by Stan Lee and John Romita, Kingpin made his debut in 1967's Amazing Spider-Man issue 50. As mentioned by Stan Lee, when Spider-Man was facing enemies like Big Man, Green Goblin, etc., he wanted to introduce a character for whom crime was merely a job and a method of amassing wealth. Later, in issue 70, he developed a personal life for Wilson, revealing his marriage and also his caring side for the same. Wilson had a troubled childhood, which became one of the main reasons he grew into a villain. Owing to an obese body, he was often ridiculed and bullied by other children. With time, Wilson realized that it was size and strength that could scare others and get him what he wanted. At the age of 12, Wilson committed a murder and eventually took the path of a criminal. He underwent rigorous sumo training and bodybuilding. He has a flair for political science, which he studied from stolen books. The knowledge and strength eventually made Wilson a powerful force amongst the local gangs, and he slowly rose to the top of the chain, gaining himself the title Kingpin of Crimes. He was hired by famous crime boss Don Rigoletto, who he eventually killed, and became the most feared crime boss in the entire New York City. However, he still had rival gang leaders waiting to seize his position of power. Wilson planned to hide his crime from the world and hence formed a legitimate business of spices imported from the Far East. No one could ever imagine that the leader of most thugs and criminals was actually Wilson Fisk, a legitimate businessman. At some point, he met a woman named Vanessa, and the two fell in love. Vanessa and Wilson gave birth to a son whom they named Richard. Wilson despised the kid for being too weak, while Vanessa tried her best to keep Richard away from his father's life of crime. Richard was eventually sent to Europe for schooling, where he later faked his own death in order to detach all connections from his father. When Wilson heard the news of his son's death, he hid it from Vanessa. Later, after killing his rival business partner, Willie Lincoln, aka Crazy Horse, he adopted his daughter and raised her as his own child. Situations more or less went in his favor until costumed heroes like Spider-Man and Daredevil became an obstruction in his path. Wilson observed that the superheroes were nonchalant about the collateral damage they caused while fighting villains and planned out a way to control them. Together with Tony Stark and Anne-Marie Hogue, he formed the government-owned Damage Control, which would put a check on damages caused by superheroes. However, when Tony learned about Wilson's crime history, he sidelined himself from it. Later, Wilson dropped out, leaving Anne-Marie as the sole founder. There were various versions and iterations of the character, with the most prominent one from the 1994 Spider-Man the Animated Series. Although the character design was similar to that of the comics, the animated show showcased some of the most heinous acts committed by Wilson Fisk. He was the founder of the Insidious Six, a team of supervillains united to eliminate Spider-Man. He even transformed his former associate Smythe into a half-cyborg mutant dubbed the Ultimate Spider Slayer. In 2003's Daredevil movie, Kingpin was the main antagonist. Played by the late Michael Clark Duncan, Kingpin was murdered by Matt's father. The MCU version of Wilson Fisk was introduced in 2015's Marvel Netflix show Daredevil as a megalomaniac crime lord and eventually an arch-nemesis of Daredevil. However, after learning about Daredevil's true identity, he keeps it a secret from the world. This version of Kingpin was played by actor Vincent D'Onofrio, who continued the same in 2021's Hawkeye series.
Who are you? I'm Daredevil.
Bullseye. Bullseye is easily one of the finest and most ruthless assassins in the Marvel Universe. The character was first created and introduced by Marv Wolfman and Bob Brown in Daredevil issue 131, released in 1976. However, he did not have a detailed origin story. As claimed by Bullseye in the comics, he was raised with his brother in the Bronx by an abusive father. Their family had an occasion of shooting air rifles once in a while, at which Bullseye showcased exceptional talent. His aim was impeccable, and he never missed a single shot. At some point, he and his brother tried killing their abusive father by setting fire to their apartment. Following the incident, the two were split and raised in different foster homes. Lester, aka Bullseye, grew up to become a talented pitcher in high school. However, when he was on his way to becoming a Major League Baseball player, he got bored and killed a batter who mocked him. It revealed that Bullseye took a liking to killing. His skills brought him to eventually be recruited by the National Security Agency for training the Contra guerrillas in Nicaragua. He had secret plans of robbing the Contras, but upon arrival, he discovered them living in dire conditions for survival. Bullseye next laid his eyes on Colombian drug dealers. He led the Contras to capture the landing strip operated by the drug smugglers and next encouraged them to deal with them. Bullseye planned to steal the money from the deal and leave the Contras to face the Mafia, Russian Mafia, and Yakuza, among other criminal threats. However, his plans were ruined when Punisher gave a surprise visit and furiously killed the organized crime leaders in an explosion. Bullseye barely managed to survive the blast, and even fought the Punisher until the agents of the Drug Enforcement Administration interrupted. Punisher escaped, while Bullseye surrendered to them. Following this, Bullseye turned towards exacting revenge from his father and tried to burn down the prison containing him. Bullseye has worked for several crime bosses, including Kingpin and Mysterio. In the Old Man Logan story arc, he was working for the Red Skull. He became a recurring villain for Daredevil and fought him on numerous occasions. At one instance, when his backbone was shattered, his spine, skull, and fists were coated with adamantium. The first live-action version of Bullseye was showcased in 2003's movie Daredevil as the secondary antagonist. He was portrayed by Colin Farrell. In the third season of the Netflix Marvel Cinematic Universe TV series Daredevil, here he was a hard-working and diligent FBI officer played by Wilson Bethel. The character is a twisted individual who eventually becomes Kingpin's right hand. He claimed to have a likeness for murdering and also that his accurate aim represented his desperation to give his best shot for any and every opportunity that he developed in his youth to change his miserable life. The Hand. The Hand originated centuries ago in feudal Japan by a group of people who stood up against the oppressive class system in the period. They fled to the mountain regions of Iga and Koga, where they developed a unique form of martial art known as ninjutsu. The form was highly effective and known for its stealthy attacks. The art form developed over the years, with children being sent to different camps to begin their training. The curriculum developed expertise in unarmed combat, swordplay, weaponry, escape, and evasion. They grew up to be ninjas, with physical and mental capabilities that surpassed any normal human being. The Hand operated from Japan, but offered their services to whoever paid them well. After serving as a secret society of Japanese nationalist samurai, they allied with the Snake Root, an ancient ninja clan that served a demon known to them as the Beast. The members of the Hand also possessed the art of powerful occultism, using which they not only kill, but also resurrect them to join their clan. The first live-action version of the Hand was shown in 2005's movie Electra as the major antagonist. In 2003's The Wolverine, the Black Ninja Clan were quite similar to the Hand. MCU also showcased their version of this organization in the Daredevil and Iron Fist TV series.
Kid, I'm the one who does the killing.
The Punisher. Created by John Romita, Gary Conway, and Ross Andru, Frank Castle, aka The Punisher, was introduced to the Marvel Universe in 1974's The Amazing Spider-Man issue 129. Born in Queens to Mario and Luisa Castiglione, Frank grew up to become a decorated Marine officer and later a captain. He served in the Vietnam War and later resigned to become an instructor in the Special Forces. It was in New York and closer to his wife and children. Life was peaceful, Daredevil, until one day when Frank and his family encountered a mob execution during their picnic in Central Park. The mob fired at them and killed everyone except Frank, who was mortally wounded. Frank recovered, but was unable to move on from the incident. He gave up on the corrupt judiciary system and decided to choose a life of revenge. He disappeared the day he was about to receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom and became the most ruthless vigilante, the Punisher. His sole purpose was to eradicate organized crime at all costs. The Punisher is one of the most iconic and recognized characters in the Marvel Universe, who cannot be designated as good or bad. Punisher and Daredevil faced each other in Daredevil issue 183 while pursuing a criminal. In most cases, Daredevil fought Punisher in order to stop him from killing criminals. In the Civil War II story arc, when James Rhodes was killed by Thanos, the Punisher managed to obtain the War Machine armor and became War Machine 2, until Rhodes was brought back to life. Punisher also served as the secondary antagonist in the second season of the Daredevil TV series, and will be returning in Daredevil Born Again. Purple Man. Zebediah Kilgrave, aka the Purple Man, was introduced in 1964's Daredevil issue 4, Kilgrave, the Unbelievable Purple Man. He was born in Rijeka, a place now in Croatia, where he grew up to become an international spy. During one of his missions, where he was sent to infiltrate a chemical factory, he was accidentally drenched in a chemical liquid that turned his hair and skin purple. He was caught and questioned, to which he gave lame answers to his captors. Surprisingly, they all believed him and let him go. There were several more incidents in Zebediah's life that made him realize that he had the superpower of manipulation. He called himself the Purple Man and chose the path of crime. The Purple Man was a powerful villain, known for manipulating many superheroes and individuals like the Thunderbolts and Jessica Jones. He faced Daredevil and was imprisoned by him. He later managed to set himself free and settled in San Francisco. The notorious villain appeared in the famous X-Men the Animated Series. He was showcased in the 8th episode of the 3rd season titled No Mutant is an Island. Diverging slightly from the comics, Purple Man in the series was a telepathic terrorist mutant who was known to the world as a philanthropist. However, he had to use a face cream to hide his complexion. The Purple Man orchestrated plans to overthrow the government with the help of a group of Min-controlled mutants. He was stopped by Cyclops. In the Avengers, Earth's mightiest heroes, the Purple Man was the one behind the Avengers becoming world-ruling tyrants. After escaping from the prison, he managed to manipulate Iron Man into building a satellite that could spread his mind-controlling abilities to other Avengers. His plans were successful, but it was Vision who remained free from his control and managed to save the other Avengers. The first live-action version of the Purple Man was showcased in the Marvel Netflix series Jessica Jones. Electra, sometime villain, sometime lover. Created by Frank Miller, Electra has been a friend and foe of Daredevil until she chooses an independent path for herself. Electra Nachios was born to a wealthy family. Her mother died after giving birth to her, following which she was raised by her father, the powerful and reputed Hugo Nachios. At the age of 20, Electra and Hugo were taken hostage by a group of terrorists who eventually killed Hugo. This was also during the time when Matt began his life as the Daredevil. He tried saving them from the terrorists and eventually fell in love with Electra. However, the death of her father was not something she could easily move on from. Seeking a path of revenge, Electra moved to China to learn martial arts. She joined the clan known as the Chaste and received her training from Stick. Later, at some point, she was corrupted and recruited by the Hand. However, she denied killing her master from Chaste, following which she discarded both sides and chose to become an independent assassin. Ikari. Ikari was one of Daredevil's most mysterious rivals. There was no true revelation of the character's origin, except for the fact that he had once faced an accident similar to that of Matt, which gave him the ability of extrasensory perception like Matt. Created by Mark Waid and Chris Chamney, the character was introduced in Daredevil issue 25, released in July 2013. In the issue when Daredevil and Ikari fought, the former was nearly killed by the villain, Nuke. Debuting in Daredevil issue 232, God and Country, Frank Simpson, aka Nuke, was a result of the infamous Weapon X program. Born to a rich alcoholic and abusive woman in Ohio, Frank grew up developing mental issues and later developed an unhealthy attraction for his babysitter. The babysitter had a liking for Frank's father, for which she manipulated Frank into killing his mother in order to clear her path. Later, Wolverine was tasked to kidnap the child for the Weapon X program. He arrived at Frank's house, killed the babysitter, and captured Frank. Weapon X was then working on a new project to clear Captain America-like soldiers. It was called Project Homegrown. Frank underwent the procedure and eventually began working as a Black Ops agent in the Vietnam War. All of this was impacting Frank's mental condition terribly, and it became worse after he was captured and tortured ruthlessly by the Viet Cong. Later, Logan implanted the phrase "No VC," which would make Luke frenzy into a killing rampage. Luke was then sent to a village where the villagers tried explaining to Luke that they are not Viet Cong. However, they ended up saying "No VC," which triggered Luke, and he killed each and every one of them ruthlessly. Luke was later given cybernetic enhancements in the final rounds of the program. To manage his anger, he had to take adrenaline pills. Luke was excellent with hand-to-hand combat, and also possessed a healing factor owing to his high metabolism rate. Nuke was hired by Kingpin to attack Daredevil and the Hell's Kitchen. He made him believe that Daredevil was against America, which gave him a cause to battle him. Daredevil fought him until he learned about the malpractices that Frank went through via the nefarious Project Homegrown. He tried protecting Nuke, and when he died, Daredevil took his body to the Daily Bugle to expose the illegal practices happening to people like Frank. Mr. Fear. Mr. Fear was a mantle borne by several characters. The character was created by Stan Lee and Wally Wood and introduced in Daredevil issue 6. Mr. Fear's signature move was to infect his opponents with a fear gas, which accelerated fear and anxiety in them. It could render the strongest souls paralyzed if they lacked the willpower to counter it. Out of them, the most prominent Mr. Fear was Lawrence Cranston, who became the third Mr. Fear. He was once a classmate of Matt Murdock, and eventually his rival. After knowing about Daredevil's true identity, he had once made Matt's wife, Millia Murdoch, lose complete control over reality. Although Daredevil managed to capture him, he could not harm him, as he had had the cure for his wife. Following the apparent death of Cranston, his nephew, Alan Fagan, took over the title of Mr. Fear. Typhoid Mary. Typhoid Mary is one of the most complex characters in the list of Daredevil villains. Created by Ann Nocenti and John Romita Jr., she was introduced in Daredevil issue 252, Ground Zero. Mary was born to abusive parents, whose ferocious arguments traumatized her since birth. She was abused as a child, too. And one day, when her father reached her crib, she began showcasing multiple personalities with a wild rage. When her telekinetic, pyrokinetic, and telepathic powers were revealed, she was taken away and institutionalized. She constantly had a fever, for which she was called Typhoid Mary. The institution experimented on her personality disorders and also abused her. As the identity of Mary, she was calm and gentle, which was exactly opposite to her other personas, which could make her murder her opponents ruthlessly. One of her personas brought her fame as an actress, but it was short-lived, and she ended up being a prostitute, going by the name Lila. Daredevil encountered her while chasing one of the Fixer's associates. Mary, along with the other prostitutes, tried to stop Daredevil, which led to Mary falling out of the window. With the fall, her Typhoid personality took over, and she vowed never to be hurt by a man. Typhoid eventually took the path of crime as her career. Ekko. Created by David Mack and Joe Quesada, Ekko was introduced in 1999's Daredevil Volume 2, Issue 9. She was the daughter of Willie Lincoln, aka the Crazy Horse. Her name was Maya. As mentioned earlier, Crazy Horse was killed by Kingpin, following which she was taken in by Kingpin. It was also one of Willie's dying wishes. Wilson got Maya admitted to a boarding school for special children, but when her talent for photographic memory was noted, she was sent to another school for prodigies. Maya, photographic memory enabled her to memorize and copy the exact movements of anything. It was similar to that of the Taskmaster. Later, when Maya asked Fisk about the man who killed her father, he states it was Daredevil. Maya and Matt met, and they fell in love. She learned about Daredevil's true identity, along with the fact that when her father died, Matt was a kid and could not have possibly killed her father. Man-Bull. William Torrens, aka Bull Taurus, was introduced in 1971's Daredevil issue 78 and created by Gary Conway and Gene Colan. He and his partner, Itch, worked for Professor Klein and kidnapped test subjects for his experiments. Daredevil's intervention made the professor lose one of his targets, following which William was made to undergo an experiment that transformed him into a supersized monster bull with horns protruding out from his forehead. He confronted Daredevil, but only to transform into his human form suddenly, and was sent to prison. His partner, Itch, smuggled the Man-Bull serum into his cell, and he was transformed into Man-Bull permanently. Man-Bull and Daredevil faced each other several times, but he could never really become a successful criminal. Stiltman. Known for being one of the silliest Marvel villains, Stiltman made his debut in 1965's Daredevil issue 8. Originally known as Wilbur Day, he chose the life of a criminal after stealing hydraulic rams from his employer, Carl Caxton. He then reconstructed them to design a battlesuit with telescopic stilts that could stretch 300 feet into the air. With long legs and armor, the Stiltman began robbing places. However, more was needed because his suit was not one of his original creations, and hence he never got any appreciation for it. Wilbur next contacted Matt Murdock to fight his case and acquire him to gain full credit for the suit. Eventually, Wilbur and Carl got into a conflict, and Wilbur ended up stealing one of his most powerful devices. It was the molecular condenser that could shrink or teleport anything. However, before Wilbur could use it, Daredevil arrived and tried stopping him. It ended with Wilbur using it on himself and shrinking himself into a microverse. The Owl. The Owl was one of Stan Lee's creations, with some assistance from Jack Kirby. He was one of the most intimidating villains of Daredevil, and made his debut in Daredevil issue 3, which was released in August 1964. His real name was Leland Owlsley, and he was once a financier and financial investor. His corrupt practices were exposed, following which he chose to pursue the life of a criminal. Owl made his own gang and had significant popularity in the world of gangsters. At some point, he even tried to overthrow Kingpin, but failed. Owl already had a smart mind, and later, he obtained a serum that allowed him to glide and fly across short distances. He possessed enhanced senses that were far above any normal human being. Jester. Debuting in Daredevil issue 42, Jester was similar to DC's Joker. His real name was Jonathan Powers, and he started his career as a struggling actor. However, even after his best attempts, when the critics booed his performance, he began learning acrobatics and gymnastics that could eventually get him different roles. All of his hard work got him a role in a kids' television show as a comic relief, something which he did not deserve. Eventually, he left acting and turned to a life of crime. He acquired gadgets and weapons from the Tinkerer and started a crime wave with it. He faced Daredevil on numerous occasions and gave him a tough fight, but Daredevil succeeded in eliminating him. Later, Jester met a man who practiced ancient rituals known as Lawrence. Lawrence summoned a demonic baby to possess Jester and grant him enhanced powers and abilities. Using his new strength, Jester robbed a bank in daylight, which was soon visited by Daredevil. After trading a few blows, Daredevil managed to strike Jester hard enough to vomit out the demon baby. The demon was punched away, while Jester fell into a state of coma. Electro. Next, we have Electro, who was known for being a regular villain of Spider-Man, but had faced Daredevil on more than many occasions. His name was Max Dillon, and he was a regular electrical engineer and lineman. One day, while repairing a power line, Max was struck by a bolt of lightning that didn't kill him, but made him a living electrical capacitor. After stealing some equipment from Stark Industries, Max was approached by Magneto to take him in his Brother of Evil Mutants, which he denied and later assumed to work solo. He took up the name Electro after committing his first murder. Electro became popular after robbing J. Jonah Jameson's safe from the Daily Bugle right in front of everyone. Jameson stated that he was Spider-Man in an alternate disguise, but the confusion was cleared up when Spider-Man defeated him in the next encounter. When he faced Daredevil, it was the first time the latter fought against the supervillain. Lady Bullseye. Introduced in Daredevil issue 111, Lady Bullseye Part 1, Maki Matsumoto was a teenage girl who was one of the Yakuza's sex slaves, who, along with the rest of the sex slaves, were brutally tortured. While she was held captive in a cell along with the rest, she witnessed Bullseye infiltrating and killing every armed soldier systematically. The event moved her, and she immediately became a fan of Bullseye precision and combat skills. Grabbing a set of keys from one of the dead soldiers, she escaped from her cell. A Yakuza soldier attacked her, but she slashed him with the keys and watched him die. She vowed never to be touched by any other man without her consent, and followed a path to acquire skills like Bullseye. Gladiator. Created by Stan Lee and John Romita, Melvin Potter, aka the Gladiator, was one of the first villains encountered by Daredevil. Debuting in Daredevil issue 18, Melvin Potter was a costume designer who later chose to be a criminal with a gladiator costume. He even fought Iron Man and allied with various other villains. Melvin was a recurring villain, moving in and out of prison several times. During his last imprisonment, he was given therapy by a doctor named Betsy, with whom he eventually fell in love. Betsy also shared the same feeling, and the two planned to stay together. Melvin reformed his life and started living a honey life. He even allied with Electra and Daredevil to fight against the Hand. After completing his sentence in prison, Melvin and Betsy marry, and they opened a costume shop to earn a living. Things were fine until Kingpin arrived and forced Melvin to fight Daredevil. Later, Melvin and Betsy separated, and he married a girl who worked in his shop. Her name was Lee Lung, and unbeknownst to Melvin, she gave birth to his daughter, Melanie. Mysterio. Needless to say, the next villain on our list is from the Rogue Gallery of Spider-Man. Mysterio was a mantle borne by several characters. His first appearance was in The Amazing Spider-Man issue 13. It was then Quentin Beck, an expert in designing special effects and illusions. He was a master hypnotist and a magician. Mysterio was a secondary antagonist to Daredevil and made him undergo severe psychological terror. It began after Quentin realized that he was dying from a brain tumor and lung cancer. He wanted to try one last time to exact his revenge on Spider-Man, but after learning that Spider-Man was a clone, he set his target on Daredevil. Quentin wanted to end his life in the hands of Daredevil. He hired Bullseye and made him kill Matt's love interest, Karen Page. He also destroyed the bond between Liz Osborn and Foggy Nelson, and even tried to kill a baby. However, that was not enough to make Daredevil reach his point of breaking bad. When Daredevil did not kill Mysterio, the latter committed suicide by shooting himself. Following Quentin's death, Daniel Burkhart, an old friend and student of Beck, took upon the mantle of Mysterio. Later, there was another being who took the title of Mysterio, and it was Francis Klum, a mutant with telepathic and teleportation ability. Bushwhacker. Bushwhacker was a Daredevil villain whose most encounters were with the X-Men. Created by Ann Nocenti and Rick Leonardi, the character was introduced in Marvel Age Annual Issue 3. Not much is known about Bushwhacker except for the fact that his original name was Carl Burbank and he was a priest. Eventually, he was granted cybernetic enhancements and converted into a mercenary. During the early days of his career, there were massive hatred for mutants, for which he was given high prices to eliminate mutants. He was finally hired by the Marauders, who paid him to kill talented mutants. At some point, Wolverine was after Bushwhacker, and Daredevil barely prevented the X-Man from killing him. Later, when Kingpin hired Typhoid Mary to kill Daredevil, she hired a handful of mercenaries. One of them was Bushwhacker. Moleman. Debuting in 1961's Fantastic Four issue 1, Moleman was once a regular human being with the name Harvey Rupert Elder. He was an American nuclear engineer and explorer. At some point, he made claims of the Earth being hollow, something which was not taken well by the society and ended in casting him out. He discovered an island after following a group that called themselves the Monster Hunters. While doing so, he fell inside a cave in a place known as the Subterranea. There, he found a bright, shining group of diamonds, staring at which made him lose his vision completely. In order to negate the brightness, he was compelled to wear goggles, and since the world outside considered him an outcast, he chose to stay underground and call himself the Moleman. Moleman encountered Daredevil during the time when he was stealing corpses from underneath. When Daredevil was alerted by Foggy Nelson about his father's corpse being stolen, he went underground in search of it. He noticed a group of Moloids who were carrying caskets for the Moleman. He followed them back and found Moleman opening the caskets in search of something. Daredevil attacked Moleman, but the moment he grabbed his staff, it electrocuted and incapacitated him. It was revealed that Moleman was looking for Lorna's corpse, who was the only one who did not pity him. Daredevil got back his senses and fought Moleman once again. Moleman stated that he only wanted to see Lorna one last time, and hence the entire process. He was defeated by Daredevil, who took away Lorna's body along with some diamonds. Turk Barrett. Turk Barrett was a small-time criminal who created trouble for Daredevil on numerous occasions. He was also known for teaming up with villains like Eric Slaughter, the Kingpin, etc. Turk Barrett first encountered Daredevil in the Mauler armor, which he had stolen, only to be defeated easily. He next stole the Stiltman armor and approached Kingpin to offer his services. Kingpin declined his request, stating that he did not recruit idiots. However, defeating him was still a challenge until Wilbur contacted Daredevil to inform him how to defeat Turk. On one instance, Turk was up against a disoriented Matt Murdock, during which he stabbed him and left him mortally wounded. In 2015's Daredevil TV series, Rob Morgan portrayed the character of Turk Barrett. There, he was working for Wilson Fisk, and while escorting a group of women planned to be used as sex slaves, he faced Daredevil. Daredevil quickly disarmed everyone and rescued the girls. Tombstone. Lonnie Thompson, who later became the Tombstone, was born in Harlem, New York City. His youth was troublesome, as his albino appearance caused him to get bullied by other children. Slowly, it made Lonnie become a bully himself. He used his appearance to scare other kids and extorted protection money from them. His only friend was the high school's editor, Joe Robertson, who stood beside him. However, when Lonnie's actions became noticeable, Joe ended up writing about Lonnie's activities. The feeling of being betrayed struck Lonnie badly, and after high school, he further steered his life into the crime world. He filed his nails and teeth to be pointed, trained at peak physical strength, and engaged in street fights to sharpen his skills. Finally, he became a renowned assassin in the criminal world and was often recruited by gang leaders. After 8 years, Tombstone met Robertson, who was then working for the Philadelphia Inquirer newspaper company. Robertson was then working on an article involving the murder of a local crime boss. He was tipped off by an informant called Isidore Kipper. Robertson came in contact with Tombstone, who killed the informant and threatened Robertson not to write anything about it. They parted ways, and Robertson kept the incident a secret for 20 years. Later, Tombstone sought to join the Hand as their assassin, something which the Taskmaster had also applied for. The two criminals went into a killing rampage to secure their position, and it caught the attention of the Punisher and Daredevil. Daredevil was after Punisher to stop him from killing the two of them. Punisher soon confronted Tombstone and engaged in battle in a bus, while Taskmaster and Daredevil fought on the streets. Daredevil stopped Taskmaster after luring him to get struck by a vehicle, while Tombstone and Punisher escaped. However, it was not the end of the competition, as Tombstone planned to kill the City Cultural Affairs Commissioner at a circus and secure his position. On the other hand, Punisher was after him. It was then that Daredevil single-handedly foiled both their plans and saved the day. Following this, Tombstone gave up his plans to join the Hand and continued with his life. Kiji. Kiji was a distinguishable ninja of the Hand. He was the enemy of Stick and his two students, Electra and Daredevil. His hatred was so intense that the Hand resurrected him to eliminate Electra. When Electra went on the mission to kill Hand's ninja master, she encountered Kiji and stabbed him with the two sai. However, Kiji effortlessly removed them and choked her with his rope knife. Electra impaled him and managed to escape, but the next, Kiji was back and after Electra. In the final confrontation, Electra decapitated him and won the fight. Kiji was again resurrected and made to attack the chased and Stick, but he was stopped, and after killing him once more, his body was completely destroyed. Bullet. There has not been much about Bullet, except that he is a mercenary at the service of the United States government. He was tasked to perform covert activities. When he was directed by government officials in order to assist terrorists against environmentalists on behalf of Wilson Fisk, he faced Daredevil, who battled him. His next encounter with Daredevil was when he mistook him to be a threat to his son. Bullet was eventually defeated and imprisoned in the Vault, a prison for superhumans. Sometime later, Bullet, along with Griffin and Orca, tried escaping but were defeated by Hank Pym and Captain America. Marvelous verdict. So finally, we have come to the end of today's video, and we hope you have liked our content. Daredevil is one of those characters in the Marvel Universe who has a lot to offer in the ongoing MCU storyline. Ever since Matt Murdock made his guest appearance in Spider-Man: No Way Home, fans have been dying to know how the street-level heroes would fit into a canned crisis or any multiversal threat. The same goes for his list of villains. Characters like Bullseye and Kingpin have deep, twisted origins, and we hope to see them in action soon. Thank you for watching the video till the end, and feel free to write about your favorite Daredevil villain from the list. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one, and be safe. Thanks, everyone.